Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video. Now this video is half inspired, half my own idea. So the half my own idea is I wanted to make this video for Halloween last year to celebrate 10 years since Slender the 8 Pages came out. Alright, it didn't come out in October of 2012, but Halloween seems like a very appropriate date for that kind of video. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that video because of the storage issues I've been having. And I still can't make that video the way I want to now, but I still want to make that video. And the half of this video that is inspired is from Ash's friend Morgan, who I met back in January. He did a video last year on the cultural impact of Five Nights at Freddy's, where he talks about the games, the fan games, the merchandise, the music videos, the animations, all that stuff. And that's what I want to do today, for Slender. Slender, of course, did not make as much of an impact as Five Nights at Freddy's, but it made a massive impact first, before Five Nights at Freddy's was even a thing. So let's get started. Let's start with the Slenderman's origin. So the most common origin story of the Slenderman is he was entered into a Photoshop contest on the Something Awful forums back in 2009. And the two images that were used in that photo, I remember very well. I'm not entirely certain if the image from the thumbnail of this video is also one of them. I'm not entirely sure. I can remember two of them very well, but I'm not entirely sure if this was used as one or if this is just another very, very famous photo of the Slenderman. And that's how the Slenderman was created. Then in 2011, a video by a YouTube channel called RJO Productions posted a video which is the most famous Slenderman sighting video possibly ever, where this guy is filming his friend jumping on a trampoline, and the garden shed in the background has a figure wearing having a completely pale face, wearing a black suit, standing next to it. Very reminiscent of the Slenderman. And that video actually is quite important to the Slenderman's entire being, because that video got taken off YouTube. Not by the person who made it, and not by YouTube themselves. It wasn't taken down by either the creator or YouTube. A higher power actually took down the video. I think maybe the government actually took that video down. But that video is still available on a YouTube channel called Gamers Revenge UK, which is all about Slenderman sightings. And I'll leave a link in the description to that video of the Slenderman sighting that went mega viral, along with Morgan's channel and Five Nights at Freddy's cultural impact video that inspired this one. If you guys are interested in that. Then, in 2012, is where most of us know the Slenderman from. In the summer of 2012, a game called Slender the 8 Pages was released. And it blew up pretty much instantly on YouTube. It kind of birthed horror game Let's Plays on YouTube to make them as big as what they are now. Like, I don't think Five Nights at Freddy's would have been as popular as it is on YouTube if horror game Let's Plays hadn't already been popularized by Slender. Or who knows, Five Nights at Freddy's could have been what popularized horror game Let's Plays on YouTube if Slender didn't. And pretty much everybody was playing this game when it came out. This is how I found channels such as PewDiePie's, YamiMash, and even Markiplier. Most of you probably found Markiplier through Five Nights at Freddy's. I didn't. I found him through Slender a good 2 years earlier than Five Nights at Freddy's. And this game brought out so many... This game kind of popularized horror game Let's Plays with face cam. Like, I remember back in the day when Yami Mash was playing this, he literally put with face cam in the title of the video because it was it was something that no one did. Not really. No one really did face cams for Let's Plays. Now it's a common thing where it's actually more common to have face cam than to not have it. And that game created a plethora of things. It created a couple of Slenderman songs, which I'll leave both of the songs that I remember very well in the description if you guys want to go check those out. It brought a bunch of new modded maps of Slender, which include Sanatorium, Hospice, Elementary, Prison, Claustrophobia, Mansion, and 7th Street. Basically, it was the same format as the 8 pages, just on a bunch of different maps. And there were tweaks, like a couple of the maps had a different amount of things you had to collect, and other maps had different things you had to collect instead of pages. Claustrophobia had keys, which was in a hedge maze. Mansion had 12 mementos. And Prison had 8 photos. And also, next up was created was a game literally called Slender Mod. That's literally what it was called. It's basically very similar to the 8 pages. It's a different map, but very similar to the original 8 pages map, and it's all in black and white instead of in color. And another Slender game that came out was Slender Woods. A game that kind of had a story mode, but through text rather than any dialogue, because the game didn't have any. And that was an interesting game. Now, next up, we've got Slender fan games. There haven't been as many Slender fan games as there were Five Nights at Freddy's ones, but I'd like to talk about them. So, the four most popular fan games for Slender were Slendytubbies, where you're on a Teletubbies map and Tinky Winky is the one chasing you. Slender Pokemon Edition, where I think a legendary Pokemon is chasing after you. SpongeBob Slendy Pants, which of course SpongeBob is chasing you, and all the pages you collect have a reference to an episode of the show. And Swamp Simulator, which is Slender but with Shrek, and every time you pick up a item, a quote from the first Shrek movie starts playing. Those are really like the only fan games of Slender. But there was a very popular mod of Slender on SCP Containment Breach. Have you guys heard of that horror game? Basically, it plays out exactly the same way as SCP Containment Breach normally does, but SCP-173's character model is simply just changed to the Slender Man, but the game plays out the same way, just different character model. Then in 2013, Slender the Arrival was released, after a thing called the Slenderman Shadows had been released, which was basically all the new maps of Slender that I told you about, Elementary, Prison, Hospice, all of those, but with updated graphics and an updated Slenderman character model. They played out very similar to what they did in the past, just better graphics, and 2 brand new maps called Carnival and Christmas Special were released, where in the Christmas Special, the Slenderman's character model was changed from himself to Santa. But then, March of 2013, Slender the Arrival came out. So this year was the 10-year anniversary of that game. It was basically a sequel to the 8 Pages game, but it had its own story. It had its own story mode, and the story was told through gameplay and different notes you would pick up throughout your time there. You'd go to places such as a forest, a mine shaft, a burning forest, and a radio tower. Oh, and a house at the beginning of the game. basically you're playing as this woman who's looking for her friend Kate, but Kate is nowhere to. She's not at the house she lives at. She's somewhere else, and you spend the game going around looking for her, which is how you end up in the various places. In the mine shaft, you are actually chased by two enemies: the Slenderman and this little girl who, basically, if she gets to you and attacks you, she jumps on top of you and starts hitting you, and if she does that twice in quick succession, she kills you. And basically, the way to stop her is to zoom your flashlight in on her, and it temporarily stuns her so you can get away from her. She is what is known as one of the Slenderman's proxies. Basically, a proxy is where the Slenderman, instead of killing his victim, he basically turns his victim into one of his minions to go after more victims. That's what a proxy is. And that's very important because in 2014, May 31st, 2014 to be exact, two 12-year-old girls by the name of Morgan and Anissa lured their friend Peyton into a forest in the morning, in a morning after they'd had a sleepover together. And the two girls stabbed Peyton 19 times, repeatedly, and then fled the scene. The craziest thing about this case is that Peyton actually survived the attack and is still alive to this very day. Which is mad to think how many times she was stabbed in her attack. Basically, the two girls in question that committed the attack, when they were questioned by the police, they basically told the police officers and the interviewers that the reason they did what they did is so the Slenderman would make them his proxies, because they'd been reading up on him on Creepypasta Wiki. If you don't know what that means, basically a creepypasta is the internet version of a campfire spooky story. It's the internet version of that. And that case was so big that I didn't find out about it through the internet, like probably most people did. No, I found out about this through the newspaper. It was such a big story that it made its way from America all the way to the newspapers in the UK. That's how big of a story this was at the time. And that's how I originally found out about this case. Then in it's either 2015, 16 or 17, I'm not sure, because depending on where you look, it says a different year in different places. I'm going to go with 2015 since that's the earliest year. A documentary was made about this very case called Beware of Slenderman, and it features all the parents of the victim and the attackers talking about what happened, and it showed just how easily these two girls were managed to make themselves stupid enough to be brainwashed by what it said about the Slenderman. And then in 2016 and 17, nothing really happened with him. And then until 2018. Then in 2018, a Slenderman horror movie was made. And it's known as one of the worst horror movies ever made by so many people. And it's odd because Dean, who is a horror movie veteran, I'm pretty sure horror is his favourite movie genre. This is his number one favourite horror movie ever, the Slenderman movie, which is crazy because he likes the horror genre a lot, and that's his favourite horror movie, yet the actual that most people actually despise the movie and say it's one of the worst horror movies ever made. Complete contrast of opinions there. And really, the only relevant thing the Slenderman's had since then is in 2019, Peyton, the victim in the 2014 attack, for the very first time ever, spoke out publicly about what happened to her in that forest 5 years earlier. And I will actually leave that interview she did in the description as well, if you guys want to check out what she had to say about the brutal attack she suffered and somehow managed to survive. It was said that the stabs that she suffered, if the knife was just 1 inch deeper into her, she'd have died. That's how close she was to death. 1 inch was the difference between her being alive right now and not being alive right now. Which is quite crazy. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's has never had a story quite like this that's actually affected stuff in real life. Although the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is coming out later this year, so that's pretty exciting, and I'll definitely be checking that out. But yeah, and really, since that 2019 interview that Peyton gave about what happened to her, that's kind of been it for the Slender Man. He was fading into irrelevancy quite whilst some of that stuff was going on, but he's beyond faded into irrelevancy now, to where people just remember him as, oh yeah, that thing from like a decade ago. That's all he's remembered for now. Five Nights at Freddy's pretty much ended the Slender Man's relevancy. It was going down anyway, but Five Nights at Freddy's made sure of it. As we've not had any big really Slender game release since The Arrival back in 2013, 10 years ago now. Well, over 10 years now. Like 10 years and 4 months ago. And that is the cultural impact of Slender. 11 years after it exploded in popularity. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Please be sure to check the description, because there's quite a number of things in there that you could be interested in checking out. Just to list them off: the 2 Slenderman music songs that I told you about, the interview with Peyton after what happened to her, Morgan's channel and video on the cultural impact of Five Nights at Freddy's. Thank you for watching, and until next time, catch you later.